Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting when you mentioned skills, and obviously things like, there are current skill shortages. There are various reasons for that. We can come on to that in a bit more detail. But skills, capabilities, it doesn't really matter whether it's a consulting firm or an individual. The client still needs to get some work done, and I think that's something that the industry, it feels like it's changed to focus from a kind of like a worker focus to more of a work focus.
I would absolutely agree with that. I think there was a danger point, and I think started to see some clients dial back for it, where clients got very nervous, for example, when the IR35 changes came in, and some took a very broad brush approach that said they wouldn't have certain types of engagement within their organizations, because it was very much about compliance and risk management, for example, whereas actually the environment we're operating in today, in terms of access to those skills, as you quite rightly say, be they from a consultancy firm, be they from an individual worker, a freelancer, tapping into the gig economy in terms of certain areas that are particularly predisposed to it, such as marketing, for example. They really have to be much more fluid and much more flexible, in terms of how they choose to access those skills. And I said, I'm personally quite pleased, not only because I work in the sector, and it makes our job easier if you're giving us multiple routes to market to find that talent, but I think in terms of the richness and diversity that having those different routes to market actually offer to organizations, the types of people that they'll be able to reach out to, will significantly enhance their business. They really shouldn't be limiting themselves to basically saying, I want to fulfill all of my requirements in one area only by freelance, or only by umbrella workers, or only by PAYE workers. That in itself, I think, has quite significant impact actually in the makeup of their employer base, and the kinds of organizations actually that they would choose to work with.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's interesting when you look at it from that angle. If you take IR35, there's a danger to trying to predispose how you're going to get a piece of work done. I mean, I know we've spoken about this before, Lee, in terms of how organizations have adapted to IR35 and the decision-making process they have to go through. In that's very much a case in point for, it's about the work, not the worker, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about getting a piece of work completed, isn't it? And I think we would naturally lead into the fact that IR35 was a big trigger point to statement of works, probably gathering pace. Now, we've been developing and delivering packages of work through this mechanism for 15 years, as far as I know. So it wasn't new for us to do it, but the appetite for the clients evolved rapidly, because the contract, or the skills that we were talking about previously, skills weren't available through the traditional methods of engagement of work. So that accountability to get the work completed, we were able to shift, if you could gauge them in a slightly different way. Contractors outside of scope, you can be outside of scope if you've got a right to substitution, etc., not under supervision, direction, control. You know all of these, Johnny. But we can access skills through that route, because to Joe's point previously, if you for the customer base to ensure you can make yourself attractive as possible and get the skills you need to be able to engage in different ways. And a lot of clients are actually trying to determine what's a contractor, what's a subcontractor, what's a professional service provider, what is a temp, what is a contractor, inside the scope. So this determining route to get a piece of work done, to access the right skills, is almost this service that we provide now in this triage service up front.